so that's it. So what we're going to paint then? I don't know whether did you get the picture of the email? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just I'm going to make a kind of what I see as an improvement because I think it's a little bit sort of sparse in terms of compositional in compositional terms because there's nothing in it. So I'm going to put a little bit of land in behind, okay, sort of on the horizon, as if we're in Kerry instead of Cyprus. That photograph was taken in Cyprus. 8 by 10, 8 by 10 inches, yeah. So and I'm also going to use the I'm going to paint the whole thing out with brushes, but I'm going to be doing some stuff, just a little bit of work with a palette knife as well. So just because I think it actually does something. At the end of the painting, it adds something. Okay, is my heater on? Yes, my heater's on. Excellent. So, all right. So what I'm going to do, so I was just first of all, before everyone mutes, I'll just show you the. So that's the setup there. Okay. So this is what I'll be using. Let's get that one out. We don't need that. So this usual one for my washes and stuff like that. That's about an inch of a short flat bright. Another short flat bright, which is about I don't know 12 millimeters there. I'm flitting between inches and centimeters, aren't I? And a small round. That says it's number 5, but you can't tell what the sizes are. They're just sort of all over the place, across the ranges. And there's my palette knife again. Okay. Right. I'll explain that once I get going. No, that's okay. It's okay. It's okay. So what I'll do is I'll mute everybody and. I mean, if you have a burning question, unmute yourself and just ask it, and I'll answer. Maybe that's the best way to do it. Okay. All right. So there we go. So see you shortly. Mute all. All right. Okay. So here we go. So what I'm going to be using for colour, I knew there was something that I'd do wrong. My white has gone missing. Where is it? Where's the white gone? I actually had the thing in my hand there earlier on. I'm like a mad scientist. Oh, here. I start working and then everyone gets up and leaves. I'm not listening to this old codger. Right, so here we go. Just put that out there. I'm using quite a bit of white. So, right, so colours. To explain, first of all, here we have titanium white. Okay, and just to be clear on something, some people use zinc white a lot. Titanium white is stronger than zinc white. It has more sort of covering power. Turn that off. It's showing. Yeah, titanium white has more covering power than zinc white, but you can make titanium white less strong by putting oil into it. But you can't do that. You can't make zinc white stronger. So that's why I use that. Here we have cadmium yellow pale hue. On my palette this evening, I've got cadmium yellow hue as well. That's darker. Okay, the word hue in these circumstances, I mean, hue just means colour. It seems to be sort of art terminology that we have to say hue, but I mean, it's just colour really. Let me pick up here's a good example. This is cobalt blue hue. Okay, and just hue just means colour in one sense. In this sense, it means it's the colour of cobalt, but it's not cobalt. So they can't say it's cobalt blue. They say it's cobalt blue hue because it's a synthetic pigment in this paint, which is like cobalt. So in every paint where there's just a substitute, a synthetic pigment, they use the word hue. In the Winsor Newton range. Okay, all right, so that's just what that means. So we've got permanent rose, cobalt blue hue, sap green, burnt sienna, and ivory black. So those are the colours that I'm going to use tonight. But I mean, you could just use the normal McSherry palette, which is titanium white, cadmium yellow, pale hue, permanent rose, cobalt blue, and ivory black. You could just use those and get a perfectly good painting. Just I'm just giving myself the luxury of having different colours, on my palette. The other palette is I kind of see it as a kind of a beginner's palette, so it's something you start with and then kind of move away from, I suppose. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to do is lay down a wash, as usual. It's my modus operandi. Some artists don't put down a wash and they paint straight onto white, but I always like to paint onto a wash. Okay, so I'm going to mix in some terps with burnt sienna and then just cover the entire canvas. It's not particularly big in this case. All right, and this gives us the opportunity for some of that to show through as a kind of an unintended consequence, which makes it for a more vibrant painting. If it was just white, you wouldn't want any of the white to show through because it looks stark and not very nice. So I'm going to tamp that down because I don't want to paint on a sopping wet surface. And we brought this also the reason for having a toned support, or canvas, is so that we're bringing the surface of our canvas down to the kind of tonal level of the palette. It's a bit different, like on the monitor, but it's kind of roughly in the same area, and so it means we can judge tone a bit better, a bit more easily. Right, so I'm going to start off with a kind of a drawing. All right, so, wonder what I can do. Can I just bear with me for a second? I've got. I want to get my camera roll. My picture's gone missing off the I can only see the small one that you're looking at. Let me just bear with me, please. Actually, would you just give me 2 minutes? There was something I forgot, a technical thing. I just got to run up to the house and get my iPad because that's where I can see the image. Okay, hold on, give me 2 minutes.
So I have myself set up. I normally just watch them. I normally just watch, but last week I started to do it, and I think I really prefer it because you get a start. Yeah, and I found this week was the first week that I actually painted a picture because I find you get a bit sort of lazy just watching the painting and then not doing anything. So. And I've loads of paint. I kind of felt like stuff started and I haven't finished it, and then you lose the video and then you don't. Yeah, that's true. Done. Yeah. So I said I'll get myself organised while
I don't know, what have you done? Yeah, that's what I left that up in the house. That's what I'm working from. You see, because I can't. It's too small on the computer screen for me to see. So that's. No. That's perfectly good. Okay, so I'll I'll mute you again. Okay, I can do that. Sorry. Grand. All right. So back to the drawing board. Yeah, that was a good chance to use that phrase properly. Right. So I'm going to start doing a bit of a drawing. Okay. So I'm going to put the horizon up about there. It's a bit higher in the picture, but I just want to bring it down slightly to leave room for something else. Okay, so something like that. And we can see that the thing is kind of roughly divided in three. So if so there's a kind of a dark part there, and then the bottom of those light waves, and then there's all that sort of kind of goes slightly darker again, doesn't it, underneath the waves, and then there's a kind of a shelf of rock coming up there like that. I mean, really, the composition is actually set out for us, by the photographer, really. So okay, so I'm going to just mark in where there's a kind of a wave there. There's a breaker there, some activity there, and then the top of that light wave coming down there like that, and then it sort of undulates downwards there, and then it comes back up again there. I'm dividing this up into its constituent parts, and see, so you've got that, the rest of it here, all that sort of white water is along there. That's fine. We've got that. We've got our dark part there. Okay. Now, what I wanted to do was just for interest's sake, okay? And because, we're not standing at the ocean's edge, okay, we can do what we like. We just use it as a kind of a way to put something else in. So I'm going to put a headland in there like that. It's as if we're out to sea, okay? And we've got that kind of a couple of headlands coming down. Make it look more like Ireland, really, because the sea could be anywhere. I mean, because it's not exactly a very calm sea. I mean, there's quite a bit of activity going on there. So that's the drawing. Okay, so you should allow yourself as a painter to add things in if you think they'll do something for the painting. You don't just sort of slavishly follow the photograph. You can if you want, but I mean, you can just use it as a way to create something new. Okay. So what I'm going to do now, that's the drawing, but what I want to do now is a notan. Okay, so it's like a drawing plus. It's a kind of a single tone schematic of the painting. I don't think you'll have heard this, Emer, but Elaine and Siobhan, you probably have heard me say it. It's just a Japanese word. It's a way of cementing the composition, really, the drawing. So I'm just going to grab a nice lot of burnt sienna. Is there an awful lot of light? Can you see what I'm actually mixing, or is it too much light on the edge of that palette? One of you can sort of let me know. Is it okay? You can see it. Okay, all right, good. All right, so I've got a kind of a slightly thicker mix of the burnt sienna, but it's still quite liquid. Still quite a lot of terps in there. Okay, so and now I'm going to see that part up there is kind of dark, so I'm just going to sort of mask that in. Don't use sort of neat paint, so make sure it's sort of still fairly liquid, okay? And I'm going to mask that in there. And then I'm going to do the same for the slightly darker bit it's under here. See where you can see it's kind of quite dark. All that area is too light, I think, to do anything with. And then here I'm just going to sort of mark in where I think that's rock there, and you can see little bits of rock coming through there like that. All right. And I'm likewise going to just mass in those headlands. And I'm sure you'll agree with me, that is one dull sky. Okay, so I don't want a dull sky either. It's just like a grey day and off Cyprus. So I want a more lively kind of sky. So I'm going to put in some clouds, like you would get off the coast of Ireland on a blustery day, I suppose. No, probably rain. Okay. I just made them up. Okay. Make up little clouds. And shall I tamp that down just a little bit, so it's not too... So that would be that is a kind of a notan, right? We can see the whole scheme of the painting there. So it's beyond a drawing, but less than a painting. All right, what I'm going to start with, okay, is the dark part. It's kind of dark, a dark blue-green, okay? And this is where I've got sap green. But you could mix this up with cadmium yellow pale hue and cobalt blue. Okay, yeah, that's right. I mean, to make a green. I'm just going to use the sap green. Bit of blue. More blue, and just to darken it down, I'm going to add in a little bit of red as well, just to make sure that it's as dark as I want it to be. It's really quite dark over there. Alright, and I'm going to put in that horizon line. We'll get to see this soon, when they let us off the leash. Get out and get an actual holiday and stop seeing the same four walls. It'll be great. Okay, so I've got a kind of a dark bit up there, right? It changes somewhat as it goes down, but not too much. Actually, I might sort of put that in under there. It's quite dark, and it comes dark in there like that. And then it's dark as it gets over to the right, left there. Okay. Now, down here, we're in the same kind of territory, but it's lighter. I'm just going to mix up some more sap green in there. Bit of terps. What we're doing at this stage is exactly the same as we'd be doing in the usual kind of painting. Painting a silver jug or anything like that. We're blocking in. Locking in there. Just going to leave myself a space for that really light part. Up there. So this is marginally lighter than that part. Okay, and some bits coming down here like that. Okay, hang on. Maybe I'll build that up a bit more. Now the next part I'm going to do is this part, which is turquoise. Okay, so turquoise. I'm going to make it up. I'm assuming that you're using this, the cobalt blue and the cadmium yellow pale hue. So I'm going to grab some blue, grab some yellow, and grab some white. It's quite luminous, that. Okay. Yes, so something along that. I'm going to just try and avoid a little bit sort of the areas that are going to be really white. See, it doesn't matter too much about the composition. You can get it generally right in this case because it's so fluid, you know, that no one will ever see that you didn't sort of get the photograph right, if you see what I mean. Okay, so we've got a kind of a turquoise sort of a part there, still blocking in, and the turquoise part is also down at the lower left as well. To make up a bit more for myself. So down here, you can see a lot of it there. Still avoiding that area there, which is white. Comes there like that. And maybe that part there is good to go there. All right. Now, there's also some of that turquoise, bit darker, so I'm going to mix it with the colour I put next to it there. Under here. And along here. There's an area there which is kind of lighter, but not too light. Now I'm going to move on to my headlands. Okay, so I'm going to start out with the lower part of the headland. You know, the kind of bit that's facing the sea, which is generally sort of rock, and it's a dark. So blue, I tell you, I'll bring it over here. Blue, green, yellow, and red. All those three together in varying amounts will make a dark, okay? But it's far away. So I'm just going to mix in a little bit of white. Just to take away that, just to help it recede into the background. And this is just for the front one here, okay? So there. And we can make this bit up, you know, the way that the land just is uneven. Yeah, something like that, wouldn't it be? And sometimes you get sort of areas that kind of go into the land there like that. You know, bits of... Could be like that, couldn't it? That looks like a headland. Do you get it? Any difficulties? You can unmute yourself.
What sort of, your colours are slightly different, Kevin. The headland, is that more green or more blue? I can't see it properly.
Get the tone right. Blue greens. Don't worry about getting the... See, this is the thing about people in photographs, is that, you know, they often get tied into the photograph and trying to get the thing right. But if you can get the tone right and be in the general area of the colour, you'll be far more successful. No, so it's not about getting the photograph, you know, matching. It's nice to be able to match the colours, but you also don't want to be enslaved by the photograph. No, so it's the tone is most important. And I mean, I've got a bunch of yellow lights on this, so in fact my painting might be off. Let me just have a look at what I'm doing. Mine's bluer than the actual photograph, but that might be down to the lights that are surrounding me, because to me, I'm looking at this and I'm looking at the iPad, it looks the same. So it's the tone that matters, okay? So blue greens, but the tone, make sure that how light and dark it is more important than the actual colour. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. So, and I'll switch myself off. Right. So yes, I'm doing the headlands now. So there's a little thing called atmospheric perspective. So as things get further away, they get paler. So this headland is further away, and I'm going to make it pale. But they're often, of these headlands, they kind of look the same shape. And then for the last headland, I'm going to make that further away again by putting a bit more kind of white into it there. All right. And now I'm going to do the grass parts at the top. Okay, so green and yellow and a little bit of red to make it look more natural. Get a bit of oil, terps into that, I should say. Okay, and then a little bit of white into it to make it pale because it's far away. Okay, I'm going to just block that in there. And then same goes for that land there. That one I'm not going to sort of worry too much about because it's so far away. Okay. And now I'm going to do the sky. And let's improve the day. Okay, so I'm going to grab some white and some cobalt blue. And make up a nice sky colour. Maybe something like that. And then I'm going to put that in, but not everywhere because I'm going to have some clouds. At the moment I'm just leaving those clouds or the kind of shape of the clouds. I can fill in the clouds in a moment. So room for some nice cumulonimbus clouds there. And also I'm going to have the sky coming down just over here. Because we're at such a low angle, we can see underneath the clouds at the horizon. And let's make up a cloud colour. And I'm going to make these a kind of an ochre-y colour, much like what's on there at the moment actually, but obviously to be beefed up and properly painted. So white plus either one of your yellows, plus a little bit of red, plus a little bit of blue. Tiny touch of blue. We're after an ochre kind of colour. You'd often see kind of an ochre-y kind of clouds in Paul Henry's paintings. Flesh, I'm going to make that a bit more yellow. Okay, I'm going to put that in. Yeah, you can nearly always tell if a painting has been done from a photograph. Now, if the painter hasn't sort of paid attention to, ways to actually make it not like a photograph. For example, portraits. If there's a portrait of somebody who's smiling, then you know it was done from a photograph. Because you can't hold a smile for the entire length of a painting session. So I'm just filling in those clouds in one single sort of tone. There. So now we've got those clouds blocked in. Now I'm going to go towards some of the lighter areas of the sea. So all that spray and foam, a lot of it isn't quite white. The temptation would be to put it in as a white, but it's not quite. So I'm just going to come brighter with that kind of sea green. It is weird how it looks much bluer in the painting. Part of that is actually there's probably not enough light on the actual painting. But I've got loads of lights. I don't see how I can change that. I need a floodlight. But anyway, look, it's not an issue. So I'm going lighter. So I'm getting that same kind of turquoisey colour. and making putting white into it, okay? And I'm going to start adding in those areas. So what we're doing was we're coming forward towards the light with each succeeding sort of application of paint, this blocking in, okay? First of all, we're dividing it up into its constituent parts of tone and colour, and then coming towards the light, getting lighter as we go, because that's the thing about oil painting, you're painting from dark to light rather than watercolour when you're painting the opposite way around, painting from light to dark. We're not painting splashes or anything yet, we're just putting in putting in dabs of colour, or like mosaic. And the mosaic pieces will start getting smaller and smaller as you go on in the painting. Here as well, because we've got that breaker behind. Coming down there like that. Okay, and even down here, maybe that could go a little bit lighter, but still not too light. Could be painting into it later here. And here there's a lot of that light tone too. Okay, I'm just going to sort of fill in a couple of those areas that are missing dark paint. Here, like so. At the moment, we're only sort of, each area that we're treating is only flat colour. Treating it the same way as you would treat, folds in clothing as well. You just mark out the areas that need to be treated separately and do them in flat. So that's a flat area of colour there, because all the details will be placed over the top. Okay, back down to this corner. Just get my light again, my light colour. I'm just leaving some little areas that I can put in darks for the rocks that you can see under, just coming in through the, through the foam. Okay. Right. That is almost blocked in. I just need a dark for the for those rocks again. I've got a dark over here from when I did my headlands, and that looks as if it might be appropriate. Yeah, that's appropriately dark. Okay, that is the painting blocked in. Okay, we've got paint on most of that canvas now. we get it a bit brighter. Can't. Right, okay. So now we're going to go up a tone again. Shall we, or shall I do those clouds first? I think I'll do some of those clouds first, all right? So I'm going to make more of these clouds. So they're kind of laden with quite a lot of moisture, okay? So, and they're blocking out a lot of sun. So underneath will be darker than at the top, because there's less light getting through at the bottom, like any object, even if it is a cloud. So I'm going to get some. That's my cloud color there. I'm going to mix some blue into it, and a little bit of permanent rose. Make a kind of a purpley color. Yeah, that's nice. And I'm going to put that under, the areas where the clouds, the least amount of light would be getting through. These are good Irish clouds now, none of your Cypriot crap. These ones are full of moisture. All right, so now we've got some shadows in our clouds, and let's put in some lighter parts. So I'm going to get some white, still on the clouds now. I'm going to grab some white. And we're going to say that the sun is coming from the top right, okay? So I'm just going to, on the kind of right-hand part, the parts of the clouds that are closest to the sun, I'm going to put in some strokes. I'm not sure if your monitors can pick it up. It's quite a subtle change actually. In here like that. So. And I encourage you to look at Paul Henry's clouds just to see how he did them. They are quite monumental. Okay, so we've got some clouds there like that. And now that means we can go back to the sea again.
Kevin, can I just ask you, what did you have there in the clouds? What colour was that again?
Right, so let me see. Can you see if I do this? That there is a mixture of white, yellow, and red, and a little bit of blue. Okay, in there, that okay, and then I just took some aside and I put some more blue and a bit more red into it to get a kind of a purpley. That they're always talking about. They're always talking about in I don't know, in poetic language. The sky is beginning to bruise.
Yeah.
No, that's what they mean. To get these purple clouds that are laden with moisture, I suppose. So and then I went back to put in the lightest areas of the clouds. Is more white in the original colour.
So you use that mixture then and add it back to white then to
Yeah.
lighten it.
Yeah, that's it. Okay. No, not at all. Okay. So now we're going to go back to the sea. Okay. And I'm going to put in yet a lighter shade of that surf color, but still not the brightest. Okay, that's still going to be a mixture of white with green and blue into it. Okay, here we go again, but then there's less of it this time. We're painting into the bit that we've already painted. So we're gradually going to get, we're giving the impression that there's light bouncing off, very random parts of this this body of water. So we're not going up to the brightest part yet. So this is white with green and blue into it. Okay, and here that's quite bright there. Now here we're going to start sort of making sort of little sort of patterns, just tipping the brush onto the surface without brushing it. Don't just squidge it onto the surface. Just leave the paint on in little sort of little dabs, because there's kind of this foam on the water and it's floating around, but it's not floating around completely covering the water. And it comes up in there like that. And that's all quite light there. There's even little bits coming onto the rocks there. So you're partially obscuring those dark parts. But don't get rid of them completely. We need them there to... The whole thing is extremely random. That's what you're trying to give the impression of. Dabs. Now, some of that white is actually in here, but the wave is curling over towards us, curling. So it's actually there's a lot of light getting through, so you can see the luminosity of the water there, but it is still casting a shadow on the foam underneath here, which to me is kind of bluer. So I'm just going to add a bit of blue. And maybe a touch of permanent rose there. So it makes it slightly sort of bluer and greyer. So, and I'm going to put this foam underneath that wave because the wave is casting a shadow on this foam. Putting in little dabs just to... without covering over everything. In here too. See that's curling over towards us. Okay. We can see it a little bit over here as well, just on that part there. But not too much, that's kind of further away, it's harder to see. Alright, so we're going to leave that for a minute. And we're going, because this is like any painting, you get to a certain stage, you get to that stage of having blocked it in, and then you bounce around, putting in details, but you don't just concentrate on one area. You do an area until you've got that bit done, and you just move around, go to somewhere else. Okay, so I'm now going to actually start doing some of these sort of waves in the background there, because it's not all dark over there. It's some of it is a bit lighter, so I'm going to mix up some blue and white and green, but lighter than the dark area that surrounds it. Let's see what that's like. I want to make it bluer actually, because it is reflecting the sky too. Okay. Okay, and I'm going to put in some dabs, horizontal. You can use the paintbrush has a kind of a blade. It's like a blade, like a chisel. Okay, so you're going to just use the chisel and have paint on the tip of the chisel, and then just sort of dab it in, so you get horizontal sort of lines. Don't do too many on that dark area. Okay, and then down here too. We've got some sort of movement in the water here. Basically, you're building up this mosaic of strokes, which it's an optical illusion, obviously, because parts of the waves are reflecting the light and parts are not getting as much light to them, so they're darker. Okay. I'm going to get some darker blue and also put in some dabs in that light area. So light dabs in the dark area and dark dabs in the light area. Okay. Yes, and I need a few more darks off to the left there as well. So dark dabs down around here. After a while you stop looking at the reference because it becomes no longer helpful. Keeps inviting you to copy it and you can't. Okay. Now, are there any other darks that we could put around here? Maybe there's some like dark areas in here. Give it a bit more contrast. It's a total sort of confusion of tones. You've got to get that across. Okay. Okay, right, good. Now, I'm going to lighten up this area because the light is, because this is a breaker, this body of water is rolling over towards us and it's actually sort of just about to break. But so there's less water at the top of the wave than there is at the bottom, you know, because it's like that in cross section. So there's more light getting through at the top. So I just want to lighten that, make it a graduation coming down from here to here. So a bit more white into my turquoise type mix. I'm just going to put that up in the top and just dab it there. And also here, we've got to leave room tonally for the very brightest brights. Okay. Let's go brighter again. So more white. We're still not at the brightest brights. But our dabs are getting kind of smaller and more, how do you say, more, kind of random, because we're starting to come towards the points of lights instead of just areas of light, the highest parts. And in here too. I'm going to do the lights in there, like that there. It's quite a lot of paint going on now. It's I'm making sure that there's plenty of paint on the brush, so that I don't have to brush it on. I just want to leave the paint on there. Okay. Putting some touches in there, because here the water is splashing up, so I'm just going to give it a bit of an explosive feel here. Just and now I'm going to move on to the foam that's washing over the rocks again. And I've neglected this area down here, so it can get quite bright down here. Now, I'm going to go back. I'm going back to the headlands because they need a bit of work. Okay, so I've got my dark, because the whole idea with alla prima painting is to start out as an obscure sort of painting where you can just see the blocks of tone and color, and then move yourself forwards to clarity. Okay, that's why you're bouncing around, sort of doing different parts of the painting and returning to them, and then moving again. So I'm just doing something with those rocky areas as they come down to meet the sea. There, like that. They're kind of random things, really. You know, they're you don't have to put in much detail. And then as we go further back, they get sort of more pale. Those little mountains sort of in the background. And I better do something with the green area on top where all the grass is. Okay. Okay, just going to put that. So that's just a mixture of green with a bit of red in it and white. And do the same thing here. All right. Now, the white horses. I think that's what you call them, isn't it? So on the ocean or the sea, towards the back, you can see little flecks of foam. Okay, so I'm going to grab some of my foam color from here with the small brush. This is the number 5 or number 1 even, or something would do, and you just put in some Don't overdo these. Just load the brush so the paint is proud off the brush, right? And put in just little ticks, little sort of flat lines of randomly around the surface of the water. And those are little, because it's quite obviously a windy day, and the wind is kicking up sort of foam off the tops of the waves, and that's what it is. All right, those are done. Now, I better fix this area here because there's all that red coming through here. So I'm just going to put some foam just there, cover that. Now, this. Okay, I'm gonna get up quite a bit of paint now. Just we're talking about the highlights basically of our paint. We're almost there. So quite a lot of paint. You see that? That's kind of if you can see that on there. So put a bit more on. Make sure you have plenty so that you can just pick it up with the knife. Mix it up there. So it's a very, very, very light green now. Still not the very brightest. That'll just go in towards the end. Okay. So if you have a brush, will do the same job as long as you load the brush. But I'm going to use this knife because it's good. It's good to do this, to know this. Okay. All right. So I'm going to just dab on the paint. So it's very thick. So, and that kind of splashy random way. And because it's a canvas surface on this. I mean, it would work with a very flat, fine surface as well. But because there's a canvas surface on this, that's what you call the tooth of the canvas. They call it the tooth, because it's sort of if you look at it under a microscope, it's it's like that, canvas, and you can use it to your advantage just to sort of scrape along and have the paint sit on the tops of the canvas and not on underneath, so you get this nice sort of this nice effect. You can do it with a brush as well, and the tendency with the brush is to actually brush it on, and you've got to be very sort of light, very sort of how do you say, light-handed with this. And I'm just sort of making it so that little points of paint are just being picked up on the surface of the canvas in kind of random places, just like flecks of foam coming up off the sea. And up here as well, see bits of foam are just being blown up off the rest of the body of water. And that there's kind of a lot of paint. Like, so if you could see this, you'd see that the paint, there's a lot of texture in this. In this painting, okay, and now we're going to do the same thing down here, because this is splashing up at us. And there's various points around here. It's also sort of and then down here it can be a bit like that as well. And the good thing about the knife is it doesn't let you get down into details. It makes you less specific. down here. And it's only an impression, sort of, that you need to give. Don't get yourself into conniptions trying to get it right, because and we've even got some lights coming down there like that, and a bit coming up there too. Somebody said it looked like the place called the Three Sisters in Ballyferreter, you know, with those headlands coming out there like that. And what I do when I'm painting, and I have a kind of a mental cue like that, is I start thinking about sort of a place, and you know, if I've been there, and it helps the painting along, because you start living the painting. Actually, that's the nicest way to paint. Right. Now, I want to darken, clean my brush. Always clean, sort of keeping the brush shape. Okay. I want to darken that area above this, because that will make that look brighter. So I want to... I'm mixing the blue and sap green, or you can just mix blue, yellow and red to get a nice dark green. Okay, and I'm just going to put in some darks in there and shape that area there. Some darks in there too. The point is, right, is that when you're finished with this painting, when you've come away from that photograph, it's the painting that matters. And if you just don't tell anyone where the painting is, no one's ever going to say, "Oh yeah, you didn't get that quite right, did you?" Some darks in there maybe. Down here. So I'm just going over just little points, putting in notes where I think that they should be. Little strokes, just really sort of very delicately put on. And I think I might just do some little sort of just changes in those clouds for a start. I'm going to get some really bright white and some yellow, little touch of yellow and a tiny touch of red. Get a very, very warm highlight kind of pink, and have the sun catching bits of those clouds, the brightest part. There's lots of texture in that. There's a lot of paint going on. And let's see if I can't sort of just lighten that part there. What do you think? Unmute yourselves then, and we'll try and sort of.
Beautiful. It's beautiful.
See,
Beautiful. Up slightly, up a little. Oh yeah.
yeah,
It's amazing.
yeah. So that.
Stunning. Yeah.
So what we've done, we've created a painting from a photograph, which is kind of like pretty close to the photograph, but it tells a different story. Like for a start, that's not Cyprus, and I think in order for how would you say, for the sake of your own self and truth, you might have a photograph of Kerry, taken from the beach, and you like the mountains in the distance, and you could put those ones in. I had to make those up because I don't have a reference for any part of Kerry, but I've been there and I know what they're kind of like, so I put them in. So in other words, if I was doing an illustration, I suppose, for a newspaper, I could make mountains up, make headlands up. If somebody were to ask me where they were, I'd probably say at this stage, I don't remember. It's so you just don't, well, you don't explain your paintings for a start. But we've kind of created almost a story from, a reference. I think that's the idea, to not to just take a photograph and to copy it. So the same thing went on with this that goes on with all paintings. We I'll just take myself off. That we identified the areas that we're going to treat differently: the sky, the clouds, the headlands, that band of water, the rocks, and then the light parts. And then we came forward to clarity on them. So that's the that's the way with all paintings. All representative paintings. Let me just put this under here because I think this probably is a better camera. I don't know. You tell me if it's. Ooh, that shouldn't be there.
I think the other one.
Yeah. The other one was better. Okay. With me holding it, or the one on the there like that.
There, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well.
I think the colour might be more on the left side. The colour might be more true to what you painted.
Yeah.
That light.
It's weird because that's really grey and blue. The camera that's pointed at the easel, which is a bit of a problem, isn't it? I didn't realise it was that bad.
The sky is beautiful.
Yeah, but it's all made up, isn't it?
Clouds.
Once you do it several times, you say, "Oh yeah, I can paint clouds." You don't have to start looking at references. It's nice to do it, but you don't have to. You can make them up. Just as long as you allow yourself to paint a painting and not a photograph. People get hung up on accuracy, and most of the time, there's no need for it. People like to see humanity rather than accuracy. And humanity's sort of full of failing, isn't it? Yeah. So, do you have any other questions about it?
I do, just on the white. I find that after I've done the white and then want to put more on it, like your final stages of highlights, it just doesn't come up well. Is that because I have too much? Is the paint too wet?
So does it goes muddy? Is that?
It just doesn't come up strong, and I'm wondering, am I using the wrong? You don't mix it with anything. You just put it on heavy.
Yeah, neat. Well, there are a couple of things, right? Firstly, did you start your painting too light? No, in too high a key. It's like singing. You know, you start the song off in quite high, and you get to the high part of the song, and there's nowhere to go. It's
Yeah.
exactly the same as that. But the other thing is, what paint are you using?
Yeah, no, this, but no, it is titanium white.
Yeah,
Um,
which brand
it's
and
it's
what?
it's Winton.
Okay,
Winton.
all right.
Sometimes I find, yeah, they go a bit opaque on me, and I don't know if it's because I need to mix them with something or why they're going opaque. Losing that.
Well, I like opaque myself. I kind of prefer that to transparent paints that do my.
Sorry, I mean transparent.
Oh, I see. All right. Okay.
Yeah, I mean it goes quite see through, and I'd like it to be heavier and
I
Yeah.
find that as well. I think it's just the other way when you do it, Kevin. You give it a good strong stroke, a
Yeah.
technical stroke. Sometimes I think I go too lightly and it blends in with the paint
Yeah.
that's already there.
I think the one thing that you can't do, and I don't know whether this is what you're doing or not, but I'm just because I thought of it now, is don't worry about wasting paint.
yeah.
You know, because
Yeah, I never put enough out actually.
yeah, lot of people, including me, uh, and a guy who taught me a lot, sort of said, he says you got to use paint.
Always run out.
Well, yeah, I never make enough in the mix, or I think, oh no, this is expensive paint. I don't want to use too much and things like that. You know, but you've got to use the paint. You know, come what may.
Yeah. I waste the wrong ones. I always have loads left over except for the whites and the blues, the ones I need. I'll pick them.
Well, I mean, the whites you will definitely get through a lot more white than you will any other paint.
Mm.
Yeah, so that's not surprising. So I always get the kind of the big tubes of white, you know,
Yeah.
rather than the white ones. Um,
Kevin, just your main brush there that you used, it was a flat like this. What size was it? I have thousands of brushes and none of them seem to be.
well, what size are you painting for a start?
What size painting?
What size are you painting there?
Oh, this one here, this brush. I
No,
think
no,
it's
the
bigger.
the painting, the actual sort of
Oh, I
canvas.
think it's bigger than it looks like a 10 by 12. It looks a little bit bigger than an 8 by 10. 10 by 12 roughly.
Okay, so I mean, that brush looks okay for. Yeah, that brush looks
Okay.
okay.
Okay. And you use mainly the flat.
Well, yeah, I mean, I do. I like to use filberts as well. Filberts are kind of
Filbert.
like flat but round.
Oh, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Okay, filbert. Okay.
Mm.
Okay. All right.
Kevin,
Yeah.
could I just ask you about this? The paint that's artisan. Is that as good
Yeah.
as Windsor Newton artists?
Now that I don't know, but I would expect it's pretty good stuff because they have to. That stuff is it's genetically modified oil. You know, so it actually you can sort of use water instead of terps in artisan. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, that one that you can use water instead of terps, and but it's still oil paint. This is the thing. You can actually you can use it like normal oils. You can use terps, but then it's made for people who are, who don't get on with terps. And I tell you, I think I'm becoming one of those people as well because it's bloody smell in my studio. It's awful. And yeah, so yes, you can use it as normal oils, but you can use water to mix it. So I would say because of that. Now I'm not sure. I'll have to research this. That I'd say it's pretty good paint, probably better than Winton. But I'm not sure if it's like the Winsor Newton artist quality oil paint. I can't see that they would go to all that bother just for a student paint. If you see what I mean.
Yeah, I can't
Yeah,
imagine.
but using genetically modified oil.
The other thing is, what do you use to smudge? Trees in the distance to kind of smudge them a bit, apart from your finger.
I used to use the brush that I'm painting with.
Right.
Yeah,
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 but sometimes though it kind of muddies the.
yeah. You got to be careful. Don't 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 smudge them.
I
Mm,
tried a tissue just to kind of.
yeah, I mean that's okay. But a lot of the time smudging is kind of like blending. It's blending really, and blending can kill a painting really quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just sort of turns like into a flat nothing,
Yeah.
you know. you know, and you think that it's going to make a difference because photographs are blended, aren't they? But it doesn't. It just kills the thing. Paintings, I think they need to have a bit of texture and or a lot of information, a lot of painting, a lot of differences in hues before you start blending. People blend too early as well. See, that's what happens. Yeah, just try not to blend too much. Yeah.
I have to say,
So you were
it was easier said than done. Those waves, like I struggled with mine. It didn't. It was great to try it, but
Yeah, but don't
it did take a lot of practice.
yeah, yeah, but well, you know, practice. It is enjoyable
Yeah,
as long as you sort of don't get enslaved by the photograph. You know, that's a real sort of disaster. You know, people so often do it, and you know, and it's happened to me as well. In the end, you've just got to say, "Oh no, hang it! I'll paint what I paint," and just let go and enjoy yourself. If you
your
want,
own interpretation.
well, you but paint try and sort of bring back what you were like as a child when the, you know, child just sort of, you know, they don't care. You know, they just chuck the paint around, don't they, and sort of stick it on any old how. And you know, if you can bring back some of that sort of to your paintings, they'll be better. And don't worry about the fidelity of the results. You know, sort of say this is my painting, so you're better off. You know, and then don't explain anything to anyone. You can explain it to me because you're, you know, you're in my class, and but you know, when somebody comes along, like I know one of the best painters I've ever met is an English guy, real big influence on me. And he said he was painting in his house one day. Lives in England, and uh, his wife was there, and a friend of hers had come to pay her a visit or something, and she saw him painting because he used to sit on the couch, you know, just painting small paintings, and he says, "Oh, but really good. Like, I mean, his paintings would be really highly imaginative, so he'd make things up most of the time." And he was paint. She says, "What are you painting?" I say, "Oh, well, you know, it's this professor, and he's sort of doing. I don't know what he was. Using all the top newspapers in England, all his stuff. Yeah, so I'm painting this professor, and he's." And she looked at him and says, "Oh, I thought it were a monkey." Right. Even if you thought that, why would you say it? It's so dismissive and disrespectful. And he was laughing when he told me, because you know he's sort of he's so good enough not to be offended because he just knows that he can do the business. But it does say, well, my point was is that it doesn't matter how good you are, somebody won't like your painting and they'll tell you. Yeah,
People are trying to say, oh, do you just paint from a photograph?
yeah.
They seem to feel if you're not on plan air, you don't paint. There's an element of that kind of
yeah.
snobbish.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't worry about the snobs, because I could go up to one of those people and say, "Why don't you paint from your imagination? Why do you have to stand in front of something to paint?"
Good point.
Yeah, you know, to show me something new. That's not art. That you're doing what everyone else has done. But I wouldn't say it. But I mean that's you know, but,
Yeah.
well, it depends if they annoyed me enough. but but yeah, I know that so there's an awful lot of snobbery in painting and art, and it's nauseating really. And I think the point is just to, yeah, just never explain, never complain, never explain.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah,
think,
well,
Kevin,
yeah.
it's easier to paint on the canvas as opposed to on a canvas board? A board, you know, it's harder to paint on the board, isn't it? Because I was using that tonight, and
Yeah.
the colours were coming. The colours are not. They're not. They're coming on too light or something on the board.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, I mean, I don't. It's nice to paint on the canvas. It's actually nicer. You know, a canvas kind of starts off all sort of, you know, and then you paint on it, and it tightens up, and then it becomes really a pleasant experience to paint on it. But
Exactly.
but in other words, at the initial stages, it's not giving you much resistance, but you get plenty of resistance with a canvas board. So I quite like them, you know. You know, yeah, yeah. I don't mind them at all. Now, you wouldn't paint a big painting on a board because they start they're not good enough quality. I think most of the time.
No.
But and small canvases are usually not very good quality. Are the ones that you get in bus stop or whatever.
Mm.
So they're terrible to paint on.
Where do you get your canvases in
E-
Kennedy's or something?
Evans, well, Kennedy's. You go in there. And I like. Was it Kieran? Isn't it? He's a really nice guy, but the shop is kind of half stocked most of the time these days. I think they're declining. It's a real shame because it was a really
I
great
don't know.
art
I
shop.
normally order them online, some art company in the UK or something.
Well, I tell you where's good. There's Evans will do online. So you can order from Evans. You can order from the Art Materials Company, which is in Ireland too, and you can order from the Cork Art Supplies. And Cork Art Supplies will deliver all over Ireland. And I think if you order on time, it's kind of like next day delivery and things like that. They're really, really good.
Cork Art Supplies,
Yeah,
did you
Cork
say?
Art Supplies. Yeah, they should
Some of
pay.
them are very dear, aren't they?
Yeah, that's the nature of art. So it's a hobby. They're going to fleece you. You know, like here's a good case in point. I got that Terps there. I just got that in my local sort of hardware shop. Well, proper builder suppliers. That was €8.50 for that 500 mil of Terps. All right, wait for it. The same seems expensive, doesn't it? Like I mean, it's more than a bloody bottle of wine. Yeah,
I know.
it's certain anyway. But
Mm.
the previous the previous one I got was in Expert Hardware, and they charged me €15 for the same amount. Bloody robbing buggers they are. Yeah. So
When I ran out, I got this right. I ran out of the flippin' expensive art terps, right?
I was zested.
And my husband had this right for something he was doing. It's called Bartoline Clean Spirit. Look, it's 2 liters.
Well, what is it though?
I don't know.
What's it smell of?